Welcome to another episode of Comedy Wham Presents. With me, your host, Valerie, and sometime kitty co-hosts Miss Purrington and Mookie are safe at home. We're recording from Fallout Theater Podcast Studio. Thank you, Fallout. ComedyWham.com is your place to go for features about all Austin comedy. In addition to podcasts, Comedy Wham brings you articles, album reviews, show reviews, our advice column, our listing of festivals from across the country and the world, our FPIA contest page, and my articles for the Austin Chronicle and the barbedwire.com about the Austin and Texas comedy scene. Our most popular feature is our events page for live comedy shows in Austin, Houston, and DFW, where 100% of the entries you see come from comics and producers. Click the Submit a Show button from the top of the homepage or events page to fill out the survey to get your show listed. It's free and easy. Tag us on your Instagram stories and we'll share your show promo to our followers. We also offer paid promo pushes on Instagram. Speaking of events, come check out our monthly Canyon Grill comedy show in Lakeway on first Wednesdays of the month. Want to support these resources we provide? You can donate to Comedy Wham on PayPal, Venmo, or even Patreon. Click the Support CW icon on our homepage to see the ways that you can help us. Our podcast was launched in 2016 to bring you funny people and their stories. As a fan, I like to delve into a comic's background and motivations, and will usually take a detour along the way. Consider the interview a way for you to get to know the folks that make the Austin comedy scene one of the best in the country. If you like this podcast, please rate and review us. Today, we're talking to somebody who is a brilliant graphic designer, and he's also the host of Bare Arms Open Mic, and that one is every Wednesday at the Creek in the Cave. He's been on Kill Tony, and rumor on the street, I don't know, he'll have to verify this, is I think he's just been doing comedy for a couple of weeks, but he's been making a huge impact. But he's already become everybody's favorite from what I've heard. And now Comedy Wham presents our guest, Robert. Do I say the H? Is that like a really important? Robert.
No, that's all right.
Okay, Robert May.
Well, thanks for having me, Valerie.
Yeah.
That's a sweet intro.
I did hear from somebody that you basically started in the last year.
Yeah, so it's kind of been like hit or miss for me. Like when I actually truly started was the first time I ever did it was I was still working at the Creek in the Cave, which was over nearly 3 years ago now.
Okay.
And so I did a couple sets when I was still working there, try to feel it out, and got discouraged pretty quickly. And then so once I got a new job and left the Creek, I've probably been at it for about a year and a half, like intentionally trying to write comedy.
Yeah.
At first, I was just kind of throwing stuff against the wall.
Yeah.
So I would say about a year and a half now.
Okay.
But taking it at a slower pace than most people, but I kind of like the way I'm doing it. It's not really rushing myself.
Yeah. Well, there's no right or wrong way
Exactly.
to do
Yeah.
it. Okay. Well, let me start officially with my icebreaker question,
Sure.
which is one word to describe your past.
My past. One word to describe my past. Let's see. Gosh. That's hard. One word that would describe all of my past, all 33 years. I would say, it's a lame answer, but I would say pretty happy for the most part.
Yeah?
Yeah, happy.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a happy childhood growing up, pretty standard, nothing like out of the ordinary. So
Yeah.
I think in its entirety, happy. My past has been happy so far.
You come off. This is actually, I think, only our second time
Right.
meeting. I
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
you open for
Amy
Yeah.
Shaker, right.
And happy is your demeanor on stage,
Oh, thank
and your jokes don't. I mean, from what I remember, you don't necessarily go into the super dark places.
Right. Yeah, I try to strive for the likability factor more so than, the surprise or the dark humor.
Yeah.
I like the goofy stuff, the silly
Yeah.
stuff. That's what always drawn me into comedy. And so I try and, recreate that being myself.
So being so new at comedy and being in your 30s, what relationship did you have to comedy? What was your relationship to comedy growing up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a good question. Like growing up, I always liked comedy, but I wasn't, obsessed with comedy or really at the level of being so interested in it as I was until I moved to Austin and got a job at the Creek and the Cave. That's where I really fell in love with it. Prior to that, my family, my dad was very funny and he liked comedy, and so he put me on to a few comedians when I was growing up. Like I remember he got me and my best friend at the time tickets to see Chris Rock in high school.
Wow.
Which was awesome, and it was at this historic theater, Fox Theater in St. Louis, and it just packed out crowd, and we're the only two white kids in there, and we just belly laughed all night long. So that was like a really fond memory. Like I knew I liked comedy then, but when I got to Austin, I realized there's a whole nother level of obsession with comedy. Like I thought I was a comedy fan, and then I realized hanging out at the Creek and working there that everyone I was surrounded with, they treated comedians like athletes almost. They like knew their stats, knew all their specials, all their podcasts, and I was like, wow, I've never seen that level of fandom before. And so it was cool to see it because everyone I was around at that point once I started working there was just funny, and that's just a fun environment to be in for sure.
Yeah. So you grew up in St. Louis?
Yep, I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. Boy, went to college at Mizzou in Missouri, and then ended up living in Phoenix for a few years before I made it out here.
Okay, all right. And I mentioned that you're a graphic designer. Is that what you were doing?
It's not. I've never really truly done that as my real job. It's been something I've done since college, but more just a freelance passion of mine. Like I have my own website, and I've done freelance work that I can take on for the past 10 years or whatever. But I was working at a marketing agency in Phoenix. That's kind of what I went to school for. I was a journalism major with emphasis on strategic communications, which is like marketing and advertising. So I've always been like interested in that, and I got into graphic design that way. Worked at a marketing agency, but I was hired as a sales guy, and it kind of sucked because I wanted to do all the creative stuff, and I was like in the same rooms with those guys, but they didn't really value my input that way. So it was I liked that agency, and those folks are great, but it was just kind of a boutique agency, and I didn't really I wasn't in the role I wanted to. So when I moved to Austin, it was nice to get out of the corporate world and kind of find the comedy scene. Which was great for me.
Phoenix has a comedy scene, and definitely not to the extent that Austin has a comedy scene. St. Louis does as well. Did you ever go check out like the local comedy
so I mean,
scenes?
in St. Louis, I guess Chris Rock was probably the only one I can remember. I'm sure I might have seen some other things, but I was pretty young and didn't really know how much I liked comedy at the time. And then when I lived in Phoenix, this was after college, I did go see, I went out of my way to go check out, I think it was Tempe Improv, and then they also have like a House of Blues or something that does a lot of comedy downtown Phoenix. I saw David Spade there, which was great.
I listen religiously to Fly on the Wall, his podcast with Dana Carvey, and he always talks about things from his time in Phoenix.
I didn't realize he was from there until I went and saw that show, and he killed his a lot of fans
funny.
out there.
He's so funny. Okay, so what prompted the move to Austin? Sounds like the timing is around the pandemic.
It was, that was good tracking there. So it's kind of an unfortunate story, but silver lining is, I love it here. I was living in Phoenix, kind of just doing the corporate gig thing. And then my mom and dad had lived in Austin for almost a year at the time. They moved here to be closer to my sister who lived in Dallas. But my dad, unfortunately, was diagnosed in September and passed in November of 2020 of cancer. It was real quick, so kind of caught us all off guard and left me to just basically kind of left what I was doing in Phoenix and moved in with my mom here in Austin. It was more so she could be there for me and I could be there for her. It was mutually beneficial, but it was kind of a tough time. And when I first moved to Austin, didn't really know what I was doing. I quit my job in Phoenix. And so sat around for a few months, started door dashing or whatever, and then went and saw a show on St. Patrick's Day by myself, just a comedy show. It was at Jazz Parker's, the Jazz Club, and Colton Dowling was one of the openers.
Oh my God.
Who, is one of the owners of the Creek. And so he said, we're opening a comedy club down the street. And so I emailed him that next day, and he said, come on up for an interview. And it was really a blessing for me because having the fallout, and the grief from losing my dad, being at the comedy club surrounded by funny people, and it was kind of masking it for a bit, but like really did put me in a much better headspace, and found a whole new community that are my best friends here in Austin today. So it's been really great.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Not that it's in any stretch the same, but that's what comedy was for me too.
Really?
Divorced,
Mm-hmm.
and going to see comedy became my free therapy,
Right.
just to kind of
Absolutely.
get through the experience that was
100%.
weighing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my so my son, his father, my ex-husband, passed away,
I'm sorry.
and we both kind of found comedy a way to kind of get through the grief. And to this day, it's such a shitty thing that he does, but I understand why he does it. Like, he will make jokes to friends about, well, at least you don't have a dead dad.
Yeah.
At least you can go see your dad.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah. No, for sure. To my closest friends, I'm probably guilty of doing some of that myself. But that is, it's like a coping mechanism,
Yeah,
I guess.
absolutely. Absolutely.
To bring some levity on a serious thing
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. And the thing that I remarked too is, life experiences can shape who we are as comics on
Absolutely.
stage. The brand new comic who has had no life experience, they're going to talk about one of three things. Maybe it's one of two things. They're going to talk about sex, drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is just two things:
Right.
sex, drugs, or maybe dating apps.
Yeah.
It seems to be like when you're first starting out, those are the three
Right.
things that you talk about. And I think there's a lot to be said for having actual life experiences, good, bad,
100%.
everything in between. And I know that you consciously you avoid the dark subjects on stage, but all of that still informs what you do, because you've now made that conscious decision that
Right.
you're going to try to bring more light to the type of comedy that you do. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's never enough silliness in the world, or lightheartedness.
Yeah.
And comedy can be that. There's so many different kinds of comedy,
Mm-hmm.
and
yeah.
I think that's really opened my eyes living in Austin. Working at the Creek was awesome experience and opportunity for me, because it gave me 2 years where I was just bartending behind the curtain, listening to some of the best comics, on earth. And then you get a lot of that free advice, what's working, like what types of stories or what type of joke formats, like, do you want to try out? And so I got to see a lot of different ways to tell jokes early on that I think gave me a little bit of an advantage when I started writing, just knowing, than a typical, comedian just getting into it. I think a lot of comedians, did work at comedy clubs in the past. And obviously you see with the Mothership, they have that whole format in place. But for me, it was just really great. And silver lining is, Austin's such a great city to be here. And so very serendipitous way to find it, but it was good.
So you got the job without an intention of starting comedy for
Right.
yourself.
I just thought it'd be a fun environment.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny that, and I don't always do this, I'm sorry, but when I started this podcast, it was really just as a fan.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a couple of years
after
listening to these people and watching a lot of their stuff to be like, oh, this sounds like it might actually be fun.
Yeah.
So then I tried my hand at it. So tell me, what was that moment for you where you're like, oh, I've been absorbing all of this.
Right.
I want to do it now.
Yeah. Well, part of it was, the place I was living with my mom, and I loved going to work, getting out of the house and kind of starting to have a social life in Austin. But I was seeing, like, after my shifts, I would hang out and see a lot of open mics, which is a lot of low pressure, but still I was getting a lot of laughs out of it, to the point actually where the owner of the Creek was like, you need to stop laughing so hard at these open micers, because I think she had the wherewithal to know it probably wasn't as funny as I was making it out to be, but maybe I had a couple drinks and was feeling good, so I was enjoying it. And that actually, built some really good relationships with comedians I'm still friends with today, which is nice, because it was honest. It's not like I'm laughing fakely, but I think that seeing enough open mics at the Creek, I was like, I'm not going to try it here, but I want to try it at some point. I think for me, it was more of a fear of public speaking, kind of like overcoming it type of thing.
Really?
Like, I wanted to try it to, like, knock it off my bucket list, but I also love to write, and so I wrote. Well, actually, when I first started, I didn't write anything, and I had a couple bullet points, and I went up there, and that's why it didn't go well, and I was so discouraged. But there wasn't like a light bulb moment for me. I think it was just an accumulation of seeing that there are easy ways to get into it without feeling, discouraged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where did you go for that?
Yeah, the first
that
one was
first
at
one?
Alden Schaub's Lucky
Okay.
Duck open mic on Wednesday. I waited to the very end. There was about 5 people left. It was like 1:30 in the morning. It was probably not the best place to get a good barometer on if any of it was funny, but also I think looking back at that stage, I'm glad no one else saw it. So it's probably better that way.
So given the environment, 1:30 in the morning, you're one of the last remaining people in the room.
Right.
What was the feeling that you had that said, "Oh, I want to do it again"?
Yeah, well, that feeling after that was, wow. It coincided with, I get in these like random spurts of creativity, and you kind of see it on my like timeline from my graphic design standpoint. Like a couple months I'll be really active, and then I won't. But I had a project I was working on that overlapped. I posted the next day a graphic design post, and I was like, well, I bombed at my stand-up debut, and kind of went into like, I think I'm going to stick to fishing for cyber laughs for a while, because I like doing graphic design with a kind of a humor angle to it.
Yeah.
And I just remember being like, wow, I felt so dumb after that I kind of sat back. I was like, let's not do this for a little bit until I think I got another opportunity. Somebody asked me to be on like a drinking open mic as the guest or something.
Okay.
And so I just drank on stage and got to do a set at the end when I was already pretty drunk. And that actually went surprisingly really well, because I prepared a little bit. That kind of went out the window after all the drinking, but I had more than I did the first time I tried comedy. So it was getting laughs and having just positive feedback the second time, I think, was what I was like, oh, okay, maybe I could try this again.
Yeah, yeah. And your jokes do, the night that I watched, they do seem like really well crafted.
Well, thank you.
So you fully adopted I've got to write.
Yes.
In order
100%.
to
And now I err more on the writing side. Like I write more probably than I need to. Like when I'm preparing for sets, like I like to handwrite it out, like how I think I would say it colloquially. But then it'll obviously change because I'm going to be doing it from memory, but kind of, just like a bullet pointed list now. I've asked a lot of people like what their process is for preparing for shows and things like that, especially like starting out, what they did. And I've gotten some good advice on that front. I'm not quite there to be able to implement it yet, but for me right now, I like to write it out.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. I've talked to a handful of people that, and it is, I mean, of all the people I've talked to, it's a small handful who don't write at all. They just,
Really?
whatever they do on stage, it's just whatever's coming out of their mouth.
Do they record it though? Like, do they do some?
I have, there's one person that does record, but then they admitted I don't watch.
Yeah.
And then another person says, no, but they're some of the funniest people.
Yeah.
So it's like, you
It's
can
crazy.
get there. You can get there. I just
Right.
don't understand it because, when I was doing it for myself, like I was writing stuff.
Yeah.
I just don't see how I just, my brain could not comprehend just going
Right.
up there and
With nothing.
and, yeah.
Because
yeah.
I've been in too many times, even just with the little amount that I've done it comparatively, like where I've just blanked and I'm like, I need to look at something
Yeah.
to re-jog your memory. Do you use like the phone app, or do you use like the notes app, or do you write?
I have a notes app.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do far less stand up now, and I still host my monthly show, and I do a little tiny bit up top, and I write far fewer jokes for that these days. I kind of do the spurts too. Like sometimes there'll be a topic that I know I can kind of work out. But a lot of times I just do a lot of off the cuff stuff. And that comes from, I've been taking improv classes.
Yeah,
So
very
there's, they kind of teach you there to just rely on, you will get the funny moment if you just kind of keep working at
Trust
it.
the process,
So I'm kind of in this weird hybrid state. I'd like to do more stand up, get back to doing more stand up.
Yeah.
But I'm really having a lot of fun with the improv as well
absolutely.
too.
For
So,
sure. I've
yeah.
seen some great improv shows here, especially.
Yeah. I mean, we're a great improv town.
Yeah.
It kind of gets overshadowed by what the stand-up scene has become
Right.
here, but before the pandemic, it was a little more egalitarian levels, where like improv was seen at the same level as the stand-up scene.
Right.
But the improv scene is fantastic here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And those skills, just being able to bounce off the crowd or whatever it may be is really useful to have. I don't think I've gotten quite to the point where I'm even comfortable doing crowd work. I have a couple jokes that I'll ask the crowd something, but it doesn't matter what they're going to say. Like what I'm going to say next.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll get there if I keep trying though.
Yeah. I mean, you're very early in the process. Like, I usually don't talk to anybody unless they have like three or more years of experience. So you were on my radar, and then when I watched your set, I'm like, oh, he's kind of operating at a more advanced.
Oh, that's sweet. Well, thank you. Like I said, I think just seeing so much of it too, surrounding myself around it. I think my next step in what I really want to work on is kind of just getting more comfortable on stage, because I've worked hard to make it seem like I'm comfortable, and people have told me I don't look too uncomfortable, but there's still that shaky leg in me that's a little bit nervous, and it's going away. But it's more stage time, and the more I find that, the more comfortable it gets. Yeah.
Now, you were asked to do that show where it was a drinking open mic. Do you remember being asked for your first like showcase show?
Yeah. Well, I remember like the first bigger show, like when I remember when Adam Lucky asked me to do the roast battle show. That was big. Amy Schenker was the first weekend where I've done a weekend, so that was I definitely remember that. That was a great opportunity for me. Yeah. Amy's great. She's given me opportunities in the past, and she's hilarious. So she's always willing to, write and help sharpen the tools. So.
Yeah.
I don't have a specific show or anything that was like, oh, this is. But yeah, Amy's was the first. I remember talking to my girlfriend about that. Like, I got a big opportunity. So that was cool.
Very cool. And you've been the host of the Bear Mic. Bear Arms.
Yeah.
Wordplay there.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah. I got asked that the other day, and it'd be easy for me to check my Instagram. It's about a year now, I feel like. We're going on close to a year. It was Wednesdays originally, and it's actually now Thursdays.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Thursdays at 6.
I knew there was a change because we had talked about it at some point.
Yeah.
Because we tag whenever you tag us, and I'm like, okay. But at least when we post the article, it'll say the right.
Yeah, no worries.
The right date.
But that's been great for me too. The Bear Arms mic has been just hosting a mic, getting to know so many more comics, networking, and then again, comfortability. Like being on stage at an open mic, it can be tough. Like not getting the laughs you're used to at a show, but also just being in the booth and announcing everybody's name, just more comfortable speaking, while everyone's listening. That's helped.
Yeah. What are some things that you let yourself like think about the future of comedy?
I do and I don't. I think I have a unique perspective on it because of how I got into it. I didn't get a job at the comedy club like we were talking about to start comedy. It kind of just happened, and I never really saw an end goal for it. And I don't know how that's really received in the scene, to be completely honest. I think that some people, you might think, oh, he's not even trying or whatever it may be. I just know that, with where I'm at right now, this is the pace I'm comfortable with. A couple shows a month would be great. My mic every week, that's awesome. But there is, the school of thought that you got to be out there every night, 7 nights a week doing open mics. I just don't have the time or really the energy or want to do all that. I love the process of writing and things like that. So when I look to the future, I don't really want to give myself a goal or anything like that because I like to see how it goes along the way, and I'm having fun with it. And so I don't really want to take the fun out of it. And I'm worried. I've seen a lot of people, even my short time in Austin, that have already burned out.
Yeah,
and it happens. So just being around funny people, I think, and continuing the path that I'm on, I think that if it does ramp up in the future, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it if that's comfortable with me taking on. Because there's a creative side of me where I love to do graphic design, and that can take, a whole week of my time. And there's also my sales job is pretty taxing in terms of time. I'm driving and traveling a lot all throughout South Texas, which actually be kind of fun for me, though, because I've gotten to do comedy in Laredo, Corpus Christi, a bunch in San Antonio. So it's kind of fun to go see other markets like that. Yeah.
Yeah. that's a great experience to be able to do comedy
Yeah.
in other scenes. Yeah.
It's been really fun.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see that everyone's pretty impressed with the Austin comedy scene outside of Austin in Texas. When you go to San Antonio, they're like, oh, you're from Austin.
Yeah.
And the caliber of comedy and talent, I think, is higher in Austin. I think that they've really cultivated a pretty impressive scene. There's funny people, obviously, all over.
Right.
But, yeah, just a higher concentration here.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a badge of honor to say, oh, we got an Austin comic.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Hopefully there aren't too many bad Austin
Yeah.
comics that go on those shows
Yeah,
and then kind of
true.
say,
Ruin
really, this represents Austin?
Right.
That doesn't make sense. So yeah, so you're not trying to be the comic that does, you know, in this city you could do 2-3 open mics a night.
Yeah, easily. Yeah.
That's kind of a wisdom of being a little bit older too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm way older. You're just a little bit older than the typical 20-something
Right.
who discovers that this is what they want to do, and
Right.
then they could just throw all their energy into
Yeah.
it.
There's a lot of people that, you know, quit their job, move down here just to do
Yeah.
it, and that's I don't have that kind of confidence for sure, and I don't think my work ethic or my how funny I am to make that leap. So I definitely wanted to be comfortable and keep a job, you know, while trying to attack this, and that's I
Yeah.
think just kind of just stymieing my output.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. What are some of the things that when you were just the observer or the bartender in the back, what are some of the things that you saw that continue to resonate with you?
Like types of comedy. you're
Yeah,
saying?
or even
Yeah.
just like how you saw people behave, or just, you know,
Yeah.
what things stand out for you.
Yeah. Well, I think that I just noticed, and I was pretty oblivious before that there's so many different ways to get laughs and be funny. That was something that I still find interesting to this day, because you can see a show where you see 5 comics that are all pretty similar in style. They're telling jokes in similar formats, but then
Yeah.
you get one person that's really off the walls telling jokes that you don't even know where the punchline is, but it's just funny. Like a classic example, I think, is Casey Rocket. Just that was so refreshing in the scene when kind of injecting that just new energy. So I think that early on I was like listening for joke formats, like short form, like one-liners, like do I want to try that, or long stories that are really funny. I think just I was way more analytical than I expect myself to be working there, and I noticed a lot early on. So I just kind of sponged it as much as I could, and still, you know, I try and see as much comedy. Not working there, but we saw a show last night. Sarah Sherman was hilarious from
Oh my
Saturday Night
God.
Live. Yeah,
Oh,
with Devin Walker also.
damn
from
it! I
Austin.
missed.
Yeah,
Oh,
He's a-
that makes me mad. I
I'm
missed.
sorry.
Devin.
Sorry, yeah, we could have got you into the Creek last night. They did 4 shows this weekend. But
Wow. Oh man, I'm really bummed.
I'm sorry.
Because before Sarah was going to come to the Creek before she got picked up for SNL.
Oh, really?
Or maybe it was her first year and I had already fallen in love with her, as everybody does.
Yeah.
And she was coming through in the summer, but then she got picked up for some other project and she had to cancel those shows.
Yeah.
You were probably working
Yeah.
at the Creek around that time, because it was like 3-4.
Yeah, because she's been on the show for a while.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm so sad.
Yeah, I wish I
that
could tell
show-
you it was no good, but it was a great show.
I know.
She's
Well, and if
hilarious.
Devin's on it, I know
Yeah.
it's going to be good.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
have to text him and tell
Yeah.
him. I can't believe you didn't tell me that you were in town.
Yeah.
Okay, where was I going with this? Okay, so tell me about your writing process and how you work something out to be, because from what I can tell from the audience, it seems like it's effortless the way you write your stuff. And
Well, thank
given
you.
that you're not doing the 3-4 mics in a night
Yeah.
and not reworking, you've got to be really sharp with your refinements.
Right. I think that I'm probably too big of a critic on myself with like which jokes I do keep and work on, because I don't have enough time to go out there and, you know, try as many jokes. I wish I wrote more, but I think my process right now is I have a notes app where I write something down that I think is funny when it
Yeah.
comes to me. I've been a lot better at that recently, because it's too often where you think something funny and then you can't remember it.
Yeah.
And it's like, why didn't I write that down? So I'll have that, you know, I'll jot something down in the middle of the night in my notes app, and then occasionally I'll have those days where I have that creative burst where I want to sit down and write out something or write around that premise. So I'll just like kind of bullet point in my notes, and then why was that funny to me? And then usually what happens is I'll do it a couple of times on stage, and if it works, I'll like riff some tag to it, and the more I just do that bit, like it'll either get crafted and I'll shorten it, but I don't really have a good set process, and I ask a lot of people like what theirs is, and I like to see how they work, so I'm always opening to learning new ways to do it, because mine definitely isn't the best. I think that for me, like if I think it's funny and silly, typically I just trust my gut there, and that's worked for me so far. And the set that you've heard, most of it is stuff that is just silly that I liked and that got laughs enough early on that I've been able to kind of curate them a little bit.
Yeah. And do you ever, you said earlier that your creativity comes in spurts.
Waves,
do you ever
for sure.
like worry when you're kind of in that down creative valley that
Yes.
it's not going to pick back up?
I do, and I actually had that happen to me recently. It was the first open mic. It was like 2 Thursdays ago or something. I just came back from a long trip or something, and it felt like an obligation. I was like, oh, this feels like a job almost. I don't feel funny today. Like, I don't know if you've ever had those days where you just don't feel funny. And it resonated with me because I noticed some people having been burnt out in the scene, that maybe that was an early sign of it. But the following Thursday, I did a little writing, and I was more prepared for that mic. I just was in a better mind state where I was like, oh, I feel funnier today, and looked at my jokes before 5 o'clock where I was heading in, and I had a really good set, I thought, for an open mic. I got the reactions I wanted to, and I was all of a sudden, like, all of those thoughts and worries went away. So it was kind of just
Nice.
I definitely do have those worries, but I think getting on stage and getting any kind of laughs, like that's one of the best feelings. So that kind of cures it for a while. I'm sure I'll go in another slump soon, though.
Yeah, of course. It always happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never a guarantee that you're going to get the laughs either.
Sure. Absolutely. And that's what's tough about the open mic too, because that's usually my only chances to try something, throughout any given month is a few of my open mics, maybe a show here and there. But at those open mics, it's like, I'm pretty sure that joke was good, but there's 5 people, 10 people listening, they're all comics.
Right.
They're not really paying attention. So it's like, should I really try that? And then you go to the show, and it's like, it didn't get the response I wanted to at the mic, but the show, it works.
Yeah.
And so that's actually how the Amy Schenker weekend, all those shows I did, I was working on a new bit that had been working really well at open mics, but I hadn't really given it a try on a show. And so I'm glad it was well received.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Let's do a little pause break here and do this card game. Where should we begin? This is a world famous psychologist, and these are prompts.
Okay.
And,
nice, pick one.
Point to which one you want me to read to you. This one, okay? And you're going to read that one to me, and we'll see where the conversation goes.
Ooh. Okay. Would you want to start?
Yeah. No, you read to me. Nobody wants to hear me, so we get through this fast.
I am envious of people who...
Who are funny?
That's fair. Yeah, so am I.
Oh, we have that in common, I think.
I'm very envious of people.
I feel like I can have some moments of being funny, but, when I go watch a show, I'm like, oh, I could never be that funny.
Right.
But I also recognize that they're putting the work in, too. And
100%. And I have to balance that a lot, though. Like, I see some like, oh, they're so good, I'll never be that.
Yeah.
But also it's encouraging because it's like those people have been doing it for, X amount of years.
Yeah.
It's discouraging when you're like, oh, this person's first time and they're killing it.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
maybe it's just beginner's luck.
It's
but
beginner's.
yeah.
It's most likely beginner's luck,
Yeah.
and then they hit reality and they're
sustain.
like,
Yeah.
Okay, yours is, I'll never forget about the time I lied to. ...
Yeah, I lied too. Ooh, gosh.
This is being recorded, so just
There's a couple. Gosh, I can't remember. Let's see. I remember I lied about when I was trying to get a job in Phoenix about my bartending experience, because I had bartended for a long time, but I had to go in and shadow this bartender for like a fancy mixologist job, and I lied about having mixology experience.
Ooh.
And they found out immediately. And I walked in, and they kind of threw me into the fire. And gosh, I couldn't have been lying more through my teeth. Like, I knew how to make a vodka soda, whiskey Coke. I could pour you shots, crack some beers, but I didn't know anything that they were testing me on. And they actually sent me home like 15, 20 minutes in. They kind of called me on my bullshit and sent me home. So I was like,
wow.
I don't lie about that kind of stuff anymore. Yeah.
So for the uninformed, what is the difference between a bartender and a mixologist?
Yeah, well,
Now that you tried.
now that I know, the mixologist is going to know all the drinks, all what's in it, how to properly stir a cocktail. That's kind of where he found me out pretty quickly. Like, I'd never used a swizzle before, and it's a pretty simple motion, but if you don't know it, you look pretty stupid doing it.
Wow.
And so, they do all the fancy stuff. They make the nice drinks. Bartender, I think it could be a mixologist, could be a bartender, but bartender's not necessarily a mixologist.
Okay, all right. This is so great to know because I don't drink, but I like to go into a place and I have a couple of ingredients that I like to tell to the person behind the bar and say, put these ingredients together as a mocktail. And most places I have tried that, I get a successful drink. But I remember one place where I went and tried this, they basically laughed me out of the area. And I'm like, now that you've explained that, I was probably talking to a bartender
Yep, you're probably
versus
talking to me.
the other places.
I would have tried to make it though for you at least. I used to be very open with people when I was bartending that asked for a fancy drink. I'm like, hey, if you pull up on Google what's in it, like, I'll try and make it for you. I'm not gonna say it's delicious, but there's definitely a difference.
Okay.
For sure.
All right. Well, that's good to know. And then I guess that makes it worth it that you realize then the value of the mixologist because they will know, okay, these are the right proportions of these ingredients as opposed to a bartender that might just say, well, I'll just throw shit together.
Or thinks that they're hooking you up because they made it all vodka and a splash of Coke. It's like, that's gross. Nobody wants it.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So, since you're relatively new, have you had any moments, either on stage or off stage, where you're like, I am 100% into doing this for as long as I'm able?
I think I get that feeling anytime it's going well on stage. I'm like, wow, this is great. This is all I want to do.
Yeah.
And I come to reality check pretty soon thereafter. I mean, I just think that I haven't experienced anything up until this point. Like, I was never in theater or anything where you get the spotlight like this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like sports a little bit. But yeah, just the thrill of getting laughs on stage, it's pretty addicting. So I know that, in the moment, it's like, oh, this feels really good. And then when I get positive feedback afterwards, that's always great too. Like, I think it's something that I could sustain doing like my whole life as long as, I keep the mindset that I have now where there isn't really, there doesn't need to be an end goal. Like, I don't need to be a famous touring comedian. If I'm enjoying it, which I am now, and like I do it for fun, and if that happens to make people laugh, that's the goal, So just that the whole process for me is more fun, and I want to be a fan of comedy still. I don't ever want to feel like it's a job.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Since you got to open for Amy, have you noticed an uptick in?
Yeah, I actually did have quite a few opportunities that popped up after that. A couple people invited me to do a show. I actually wasn't able to make two of the three that came immediately afterwards. But opportunities like that have been great. Any show that I've gotten on has really just catalyst for more opportunities, and that's I think early on somebody told me to don't be afraid to like ask to be on a show, and I realized that it's pretty crucial. And I've heard a lot of really funny comedians, really successful comedians say the same thing, that there's just such a surplus of funny people in Austin that most comedians that are putting together a show know enough funny people or already have that. So if you don't ask, they're just going to forget about you. So it's like there's no shame in asking is what I was told. And that's kind of hard for me to swallow my pride a little bit on. And I definitely want to ask more people. But I've gotten like really nice feedback, and most people have said yes when I've asked. So I just need to put myself out there more. But again, when I find the time to do it and I want to ramp up shows or whatnot, I'll definitely go that route too.
Do you ever think that you would put on your own show? I mean, you're pro now at hosting an open mic.
Well, I'm glad you asked that because I have been I've been like mulling over the idea. I haven't nothing like on paper yet, but definitely my fear is though, and I don't know if you've had this, but like I don't like hosting parties because I'm worried no one's gonna come, that type of thing, and that's like the highest level for a show because not only do you feel silly or like you're letting yourself down, but you're letting down the venue that's you sold you're going to sell tickets to. So that always just gives you a weird feeling. But I think that if I was prepared enough and came with like, I think I would want to obviously go all in on the graphic design side and make it as cool looking as I could. But that would hurt more if no one came still. If I made a really cool poster and then, nothing. But I think I could handle, eventually doing like a monthly show. I think that's where I would want to start out. And I've picked brains of a lot of comedians like Lucas McCrary. He does a great job running shows around town. I need to sit down and have lunch with him, but he's a good resource that's been, all the people in the scene have been very helpful in terms of asking how to do that, how to approach a business and be like, I want to have a show here. Yeah. There's definitely a template for it though.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of the terrifying, so my show, which is out in the boonies, it's in suburban Austin, so it's not the typical walk-in audience that you get at the Creek, the Velve, whatever. So there are some people that are buying tickets in advance to shows, but a lot of it is just the downtown foot traffic that you get, and it's not what you get when you go to do a suburb show, and I'm always so terrified that nobody's going to show up. Yeah. And the venue, the GM, he's always like, nobody's here. And I'm like, I know. Yeah. But then like people just magically show up and I'm like, okay, thank God I can live another month. Right. Some people who run shows, they actually do a contract with a venue so that you're locked in for a certain number of months. So even so that you don't have to live that month to month fear of you're gonna get canned because you didn't have enough people that you brought in. So that's kind of the business side of it that sometimes you can, but it depends. I mean, downtown, I don't know if it works like that, right? Because you have this density of venues. It's some easier than others to kind of pitch show ideas, but I'm guessing that the Creek will always be very friendly to you because you kind of you had your start there.
I've been lucky that host. They've been great to me. Rebecca and Carrie, the whole team over there is amazing. I think what they've done for Austin comedy in general, but all their employees too specifically. I don't work there anymore, but they treat me like I do, which is great. So. Yeah,
that is nice. Yeah. One of my favorites is Chris working
Chris Harlow's
there. Awesome. Yeah, just because I knew him before the pandemic, working Chris. At CAP. Yeah. And he was always just such a sweet guy.
And so he was one of the first people, like when we were working together, that I realized like he had worked at Cap City. Like he's a comedy like fan. And like when I worked at the Creek, I felt like I was the least fan out of anybody, and I was like, this is crazy. Like I'm a big fan compared to all my friends. Yeah. But then you get there. Chris is awesome. He's so well versed in his comedians too.
Yeah, he is, and he represents on his little platter. He always has the Comedy Wham sticker.
He's got mine on there too.
What about the festival life? What do you think about festival life?
Comedy festival?
Yeah.
We got my girlfriend got me platinum badges for South by last year, which was our first time doing South by. So we got to see so much great comedy then. Yeah. The previous couple years I worked it for when I was bartending at the Creek, and it was really cool because we got to see, that whole week or two just influx of famous comedians, and that was really cool. I don't know, if we'll do it every year, but we're going to Moon Tower this year. Like we're gonna see that. Like I got really lucky. My girlfriend is a huge comedy fan too, so that's all. Instead of some couples will go to a concert, we'll typically go see a show or something like that. So, I'm excited for Moon Tower this year for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I feel about it. I would love to be on one.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on festivals?
I mean, I think it's different shades. You can apply to be on festivals and get kind of going that way, and then eventually, like, I don't know if you know about Moon Tower, but that you don't submit. They handpick. Yeah.
I was curious about that.
So you just have to hopefully be at the right place at the right time to get noticed, and it does help if you're visible at Cap City. You get more notice if you're performing at Cap City.
Absolutely.
During their open mics, maybe opening for somebody that's coming in.
Right.
That seems to help. But I think doing festivals is really great for it. If you've had like a corporate job before, so there's work conferences that you can go to.
Yeah,
I view festivals as work conferences.
Yeah.
Because you're going to study, you're getting continuing education by watching how others do their thing.
Right.
You're networking, which is probably the single best reason to go to a festival.
100%.
Yeah. So if you ever want to apply to go to a festival, just to expand your network.
Yeah.
It can have payoffs down the road.
100%.
I mean, there's people that I've met who were at the start of their comedy careers now that I can still, chime in and talk to them and check in with them now, all based on just having met them and talked to them years ago.
Yeah.
So I think if you're in it for the long haul, then
definitely something to explore.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
And yeah, I mean, the dream is any new comic's dream is to get picked for Moon Tower, and there's some people that get picked really early on.
Right.
Others it takes years.
But
there's smaller festivals that you can submit, and the submission charge isn't super expensive, and it's a long weekend thing to do, and you build that network so that you can do, like right now I'm thinking of the Paris City. I forgot what it's, not Paris City.
Like Edinburgh?
No, not that far. The Tower City Festival. It's in Paris, Texas.
Okay.
So it's in the DFW area. And that festival has been started small, and it's grown and grown over the years. And, the submission isn't super expensive. But if you go there, you're meeting lots of DFW area comics, and so you can get booked on shows in Dallas. And that's kind of the thing too, is that networking would allow you to, hey, I'm going to be in Dallas for something. Can I pick up a show?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just it really is just like a regular job.
Yeah.
At some extent, and you think of it in that way, and so you realize, okay, I'm going to build my network, so that if I go into this other town, I can, maybe perform on somebody's show out there, and that just keeps building your abilities.
100%. Right now, I think I need to work on getting some good tape too. Like I record all my sets audio.
Yeah.
I have a few video, but not professionally recorded. I definitely need something to show people.
Yeah.
Can't just be like, I'm funny. Trust me. Yeah.
You didn't record yourself at the Velve?
I didn't, and I regretted it because the guy that was recording Amy, I was about to be like, how much just record my set, and I should have, because it went well.
Yeah.
I thought.
Oh no.
But there'll be more opportunities in the future. Really, Kill Tony was the first time I saw myself do comedy. Like I recorded myself and heard it, and it's cringy to listen back to sometimes. But
so when did you do that in relation to you actually first starting?
Yeah. So it was at the beginning of me getting back into it intentionally. Like I had been working back in a sales job, not at the Creek, for about a year at that point. Okay. After about a year of not doing any comedy really, or occasionally. But so I'd probably been at it for 6 months at the time. I think he asked me how long I've been doing comedy in the interview, and I told him it was I don't know, it's been on and off for a year and a half. So it was kind of really sporadic in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so it was early on, but it was a fun experience. I'm glad I didn't bomb. It was definitely, I don't know if I would do it again, but it was fun. Yeah.
Who was the guest comic?
It was Adam Ray
Oh.
and Tom Green.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so it's cool. And they both had really nice feedback, which was nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
And do you kind of fall into that whole thing where you end up like you read all the comments so that you can see what are people saying?
Yeah, I did.
It?
Honestly, I did, and I like went into it like knowing like this is probably a bad idea. Like everyone says don't read the comments, and I read the comments and I was like so shockingly surprised by how positive they were.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there was like 500 and some comments, and I would say like 480 of them were very positive.
Wow.
And like there's a couple there. Fuck those guys.
So,
no, but I really didn't think too much into it. But then I was like, oh, these are all positive. I guess I'll keep going. I probably would have bailed if they were all like, who's this guy?
yeah, because their audience is so like rabid,
Cutthroat. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know.
Sure.
So I was surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, there's a book there that you could, I survived Kill Tony in the comments section.
Right. No, it's funny because like I did the minute at the time that I knew it was like what I opened was still, but I would have done something different had I not been worried that I would have forgotten anything else. That was the only bit that like I knew down pat that like even if I blanked, I could do my minute. Like this is the only one that like I knew like the back of my hand. So in hindsight, like I wish I would have done a different bit, but it was fun.
Yeah. How many times did it take for you waiting to get?
I only signed up 4 times.
Wow.
Yeah, I got really lucky because that's another thing. I was like, I'm not gonna go every Monday and do this. There are people who sign up like hundreds of times. It's crazy. I got lucky, early on to have that get picked.
Wow.
So.
Wow. Yeah. I there's some cynical comics that they are of the opinion that, and if you keep doing that every single Monday and just keep waiting to get picked and waiting to get picked, you could have been doing open mics to actually practice what you're doing.
Because it's like 3 hours that you wait there to get called too.
Bonkers.
It's crazy. Yeah. To do 1 minute of
1
material
minute,
too.
and possibly get skewered.
Yeah, no, I know. And I felt prepared for the minute, but then the interview, I was like, I felt like I wasn't adding much. I was just like, wish I was funnier in the moment, but it was just the nerves on that, being on a big stage like that.
Big stage, yeah.
You can't really see people with the lights, but I've watched it a few times since then. And it's enough funny in there.
Well, you put that on your YouTube page, and that you'll go viral. So
YouTube page I think is next for me too, but I'm just so bad at my time management. It's like I like to draw on my iPad, but sitting at the computer is where most of the work that I actually need to do gets done, and it's just hard for me to get there.
No, you're a Luddite. You're almost a Luddite.
I made my office as cool as I possibly could, so it would like entice me to go in there and get work done. Hasn't worked a ton yet, but it looks cool.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go through some rapid fire, but you could take your time with them. Style questions. Okay. What do you love about being a performer?
The thrill of being on stage and positive feedback, for sure.
Yeah. And then the flip side, what do you hate?
How awkward it can feel when or bombing. I hate. I would say at this point though, and I don't know if this is I don't know how to consider bombing, but like I don't think I felt like I've bombed in front of a true crowd.
Yeah.
I bombed in front of 4 or 5 people, but it's hard to say. Is that enough to even garner a laugh? So I'm sure a bomb is coming, but the nervousness of the bomb is probably what I hate the most.
Yeah. Oh man, I hate to tell you, but I have you booked on my Can and Grill show, right? Well, prepare yourself.
Good. I'm here for it.
No, it's a notoriously hard room just because you're dealing with suburbanites. I think you get spoiled by the audiences in downtown because they know what they're getting. They want to laugh. Audiences out there, despite the fact that they have explicitly taken the steps to attend a comedy show, they expect you to make do all the work and make them laugh. They're
Right.
not, they're going to be like,
They're not easy.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're not
Sure.
easy, which I don't get. But I love when it clicks for a comic, and
Yeah.
they're able to
Win 'em
break
over.
them through.
Yeah.
And honestly, the unifying thing that I see is don't give up.
Yeah.
Just keep doing what you're doing and lean into what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if all else fails, I know you said you're just working on crowd work, but I've seen somebody very successfully win over an audience by doing crowd work. That way they establish a relationship
Yes,
with the audience,
absolutely.
and then they go into
Yeah.
their material. So.
Yeah, I had an experience where it was probably the closest I've came to not doing well, but it was on Victor's High Tonight Show, and it was the first time I ever done stand up that high. First off, but I remember like not getting a laugh at some point, and then just kind of chugging through my jokes, whereas it was a prime opportunity for me to like open it up to the crowd a little bit and kind of like get them
Yeah.
to feel more related to me, and because I saw some comic do it after me really well,
Yeah.
or before, I forget, and just like realizing in the moment, like, wow, I need to work on crowd work because this is a way to avoid
Yeah.
that feeling of just like I felt like I was just telling jokes at them and
Yeah.
kind of plowing through it when I
Yeah.
could have, brought them along with me a little bit better.
Yeah, yeah, and I think an audience will see through you trying to do crowd work just for the sake of winning them over.
Yeah,
So even though crowd work can be an effective thing, you still have to be good at it.
right.
I'm terrible at it.
Yeah.
I try, and it's like it never.
Do you start with
works.
like, what's your name, like, what's your job? Or?
No, I ask random questions.
Yeah.
And I think my preparation is just come up with a random question, and I never think about what do I do when they answer?
Okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Thanks. All right.
And I don't know if you've ever run into Roderick McDaniel.
Yeah.
I
He's
love
so
him
funny.
so much. And he has talked about his approach to crowd work. And I think anybody that is good at crowd work has also formulated this in their mind. And they're just, the trick is you have the question, and you have rehearsed in your mind like every possible
The
response
angles,
that you could get. That way you know exactly how you're going to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next level is all of those responses, you know exactly how to have it take you into the joke that
The
you
joke.
wanted
Yeah,
to
that's
do.
the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's two comedians that keep popping up on my Instagram feed. Jeff R. Curry's hilarious. I haven't seen him live yet. The other one, I forget his name, but I saw him at the Vulcan not that long ago, and he does that so well, where it's
Yeah.
like the majority of his set is working with the crowd, but whatever answer they give back tailors like perfectly into the joke that he's about to tell. And it's like, I don't know how
Yeah.
he does that. I guess he has the jokes like, and then you pull each one as they come from the audience.
Yeah.
So it's impressive to see.
Yeah. And before the days of Matt Rife blowing up as,
Mm-hmm.
crowd work comic, you've probably at Creek, you've seen Big J Okerson.
Yeah.
When the times that I've seen him live, a lot of times it's at Moon Tower, it's shorter sets, but he used to come through at Cap City.
Yeah.
And I'd go to his shows because it was just amazing to watch him. It's like he would, he'd have his headliner set 45 minutes. He would tell 2 jokes.
Yeah.
Because everything else is crowd work.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, it's both the laziest thing, but also like the best thing.
It's impressive
because,
though too.
Yeah.
Because it's like he came up there like knowing that. Like
Yeah.
he's gonna rely
Yeah.
on
And he's so
pulling
funny.
funny out of
So
nothing,
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big J's
Yeah.
hilarious.
And then Jeremiah Watkins
Very good at
is
it, too.
also really, really good at crowd work and bringing it back to his jokes, which I know he works really hard on his jokes. So
Jeremiah Watkins very funny as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to talk about and share with my 3 listeners? No, just kidding.
I guess I'm a bit curious about your backstory, like how you got into it all. I know that you mentioned comedy was like kind of a way to deal with some things for you as well. But was there like what what was the impetus behind getting into comedy in the first place?
Well, I mean, the podcast is the start of it. So in 2016, starting this podcast, I had another podcast that was a very silly, goofy podcast with a friend of mine. And so I always just needed that creative outlet.
Yeah.
Because my background is I'm a mathematician. So,
Oh, really?
I kind of have to,
Yeah.
I've got a creative and then the very
Yeah.
uncreative. And after a couple of years of doing the podcast, I decided to try stand up. It was really, I love telling the story because I like to correct the reason for the story. I watched a comic that I love bomb, and she had not bombed many, many times, but I just happened, I saw her bomb at a show, and I'm like, that's just not fair that, she didn't get this audience.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, so what do I have to lose? Because I know I'm going to bomb.
Yeah.
And you just give it a shot. So that's how I started doing stand-up for a little bit. And then, so I did that until the pandemic. But right before the pandemic, we took over. There was Last Gas Standing is the name of the previous version of the events page for comedy. And we took that over in 2019, and that kind of like made us really, really busy.
Yeah.
And I say us because our web guru, Richard, very behind the scenes. He used to do interviews too, but now he's just web guy.
Yeah.
But I just then started picking up writing work with this. And then I've been covering the festivals for years.
Yeah.
And now I'm on people's PR lists.
Yeah.
So I'll get like big names out of the blue sometimes.
That's very cool.
And so it's just, I've just kind of ridden along for the wave. And then I've started taking improv because I do like being on a stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not
Absolutely.
so terrified of it.
Yeah.
And improv is far less pressure than, stand up.
Sure.
So that's been kind of my story.
Well, Comedy Wham is very impressive. I will say I've read some of your articles. You're a great writer.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So this is so crucial for the scene too. It's like such a great resource, I think.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for everything that you do.
It's funny how, every once in a while, especially post pandemic, because I think pre pandemic people knew about us like consistently, like 99% of the people knew who we were. But now post pandemic, some people are like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "How do you not know?"
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many new people coming into Austin. Like,
Yeah.
even since I left the Creek, it's like there's a whole 2 new influxes of comics that I'm just now meeting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's cool though.
So it's been fun. All right. Well,
Thank you
anything
so
else? Yep.
much. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I got nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, are you ready for your closing question?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
One word to describe your future.
Okay. This one should be easier. Let's go with auspicious.
Auspicious. Oh my gosh. Multisyllabic. And I think I know how to spell it.
I wouldn't know how to spell it, so you're going to have to write that one down. Hey, you.
Okay, great. Well, that is a wrap on Comedy Wham presents Robert H. May, if you want to follow him on social media. Oh, his watch was listening. Robert, tell us where we can find you on social media and promote your projects.
Yeah, you can find me at robert.h.may on Instagram. You can also find me at Rough Draft Design. That's my design account. Draft is spelled DRAUGHT, like draft beer. Rough Draft Design there. Also my website, Rough Draft Design, for anything graphic design related. For comedy, Instagram, and see me out in Austin, Creek in the Cave, every Thursday at the Bear Arms open mic, 6 to 7:30. Come sign up. New first-timers or well-established comedians, we got them all. It's a great time. That's me.
Okay.
Thank you,
awesome.
Valerie.
Very hilarious comic, very talented graphic designer. When we're done recording, we're going to have a conversation about that.
Absolutely.
We hope you've enjoyed learning about how Robert got to be the comedic genius that you heard today, just as much as I have. This has been Comedy Wham presents Robert May. I'm Valerie, and that's been funny. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Valerie.